What's up, Broncos country? Welcome back inside the UC Training Center for another episode of Broncos Now. Team reporter and host Sydney Jones here. And coming up on today's episode, we'll hear from head coach Nathaniel Hackett and quarterback Russell Wilson as they spoke to the media today. Plus, I'll have the latest injury report, and Phil Milani joins the show. All that and more coming up. The team is back at practice today here at the UC Training Center as they look to face the Los Angeles Rams on Christmas Day this weekend at SoFi Stadium. We heard from quarterback Russell Wilson today for the first time following Sunday's game, and he gave his thoughts on Sunday's win and backup quarterback Brett Rypien's performance.
I thought we had a great team effort across the board. I thought guys really made some great plays. I thought Rip played good, really good. I thought he got the ball out quick on those bubbles and stuff like that. The guys were able to catch Jerry, able to make some plays. I thought the line battled. The first half wasn't the way we wanted it to, but they really adjusted really well. You got to give them credit about how great they did up front for us to be able to run the ball that well. That's a tough defense. They play physical, and we were able to kind of wear them out, throughout the game. And for me, just to be able to help lead in whatever way I could, possibly on the sideline, communicating with guys, talking to guys in the locker room, halftime or whatever it may be, but also to just staying engaged throughout the game and just trying to find a way to win. And we did a great job. Defense got some huge turnovers. How about Justin Simmons? I always said that he's one of the best safeties to play this game, and he's been special, all year, his whole career. His ability to make plays, get 2 interceptions, I think, and obviously PS2 getting an interception to close the game out. That was just a great team effort, and the fans were great too, super supportive for us, and that means a lot.
Russell went on to talk about getting back on the field this weekend and how he hopes to build off his performance the previous week versus the Chiefs.
Yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited to get back on the field. I think that we're really catching a groove. I think obviously the Chiefs game, we were able to have an amazing comeback and almost be able to win the game there. We believe that we could have won it. But I think that, just the ability to make plays, I think it's so important to use my legs, to use my arm to get outside the pocket. I think we did a great job of that in the Chiefs game. Yeah.
Head coach Nathaniel Hackett also spoke about what he hopes to see from Russell this weekend in Los Angeles.
Continuation, I think, from that past game. We want to see him execute, get the ball out of his hands when that's there. And then if something happens, yes, we don't want him to stay in the pocket and take a hit. We want him to use his legs and protect himself.
The offense has gone 6 for 6 in the red zone the past couple weeks, and Coach Hackett discussed what's been working so well down there.
The guys have done a great job. The coaching staff putting together a great plan down there. That's the hardest place to score because it's that short field. And I think the guys have really owned it. They've really bought into it. You have to make plays. It's going to be much more difficult, like I said, and they've stepped up both the run game and the pass game. I think that's always good. It's not one guy scoring. It's been multiple. It's been play pass. It's been drop back. It's been run game. So I think that's what you're looking for always.
And Russell also talked about just how crazy this season has been and how this team must finish the season strong in their final 3 weeks.
It's been a wild season. I've never been a part of a season this wild, or just a lot of injuries, a lot of things. But I think that what's happened is, the guys that are younger, the Brandons, the Dolciches, who's, he was out for the first, 4, 5, 6 weeks, whatever it was, to be able to come back and get those reps. And now he's really catching a groove, and he's done it since day one. He's been out in the field. I think to see Murray run the rock the way he has, those are all, big moments. I think to see Mac make some sweet plays for us. He's been really great for us. And I think the line, they've had to battle through so much, obviously with injuries and things, and guys having to flip some left guard or right guard or tackle or left out, whatever it may be, center. Those guys have really taken on the challenge. And you got to give those guys credit about what they've done up front to be able to just continue to battle throughout a physical, tough season and what it's been. And we got 3 games to go. We're excited about them. We're excited about this game right here. That's all that matters.
And as we wrap up the top news of the day, let's take a look at today's injury report. Outside linebacker Randy Gregory and wide receiver Kendall Hinton did not participate in practice today. And running back Latavius Murray, safety Kareem Jackson, wide receiver Courtland Sutton, and cornerback K'Wan Williams were limited. Plus, Coach Hackett announced that the team has designated running back Chase Edmonds to return from injured reserve. Now joining me here inside the Broncos podcast studio to dive a little bit deeper into today's news is a fellow team reporter, Phil Milani. Phil, Welcome back on the show. Nice to have you here.
Thank you very much. Happy holidays, Sid.
Yes, happy holidays. Christmas is this weekend.
Yes, I got my Grinch green sweater we were just talking about.
Yep, I got my green nails.
Yeah,
We're
looking
ready
good.
to roll.
We're ready, yeah.
Well, Phil, we will miss you out in Los Angeles this weekend, but I'm happy you get to be home with your family too.
Thank you. I'll be doing the post-game show here.
Yep, everyone be on the lookout. Yes, of course. Well, Phil, we heard from both Coach Hackett and Russell Wilson earlier on in the show. They talked about, just Russell Wilson getting back on the field, hoping to build off of that performance, his last performance versus the Chiefs. So, Phil, looking back at that game 2 weeks ago, how do you really hope to see him just pick up where he left off and continue that into this weekend?
Well, that was probably the most exciting game of the season for the Broncos. And I think just the way that they were able to come back, it really was like the first time that offense had caught fire. They scored those 3 touchdowns in less than 4 minutes of gameplay. And so I think you want to just see some of those explosive tendencies. If you could see that, a couple of big plays maybe. Russ talked about using his legs a little bit today, and he was able to do that in that game against the Chiefs. I think that's a skill set that he brings. And I think just more than anything, over these last 3 games, you just want to get a glimpse into what this offense can be like next season.
Right.
And there's been so much talk all year long about Russ and so much criticism about every little thing that he's done. And I think that comes just with, you got a big contract before the season. There was a lot of expectations. So he was definitely under the microscope, this season. And I think that people have been saying this isn't the same Russ we saw the first 10 years of his career when they won so many games in Seattle. But you started to see a little bit of that in that Chiefs game. You were like, ooh, there was some of that magic that he brings to the table. So if you could just sort of see a little bit of that in these last 3 games, that could give Broncos fans a little bit of excitement and some hope moving forward, and just saying, you know what, this was a long season. They faced a lot of adversity. There was a lot of injuries, but you know what? By the end of the season, they started to get it going a little bit, and it looked good at the end. I mean, if you could just have some of that excitement going into the offseason, I do think that would be big for Broncos country.
I agree. Just to head into the offseason on a good note for sure. Phil, we've seen the past couple of weeks this offense really commit to the run game. Last week it was Latavius Murray, had 130 rushing yards. The week before it was Russell Wilson. He was the leading rusher versus the Chiefs. Do you think maybe they're kind of finding their identity on offense with that?
I do think that the running game has to be a big part of this offense. And ideally, it's not Russ who's out there leading the charge, but it's more of what we saw against who did they play last week? Gosh, I'm just trying to play.
The Cardinals.
The Cardinals. Oh, my gosh.
We're so far into the season
I'm so on to the Rams, I guess the Cardinals, I think that's more of what you want to see, where you saw some of those runs that got to the outside, the quick pitch.
Yeah.
They had a lot of success there. They were sort of forced to get into that kind of a game because J.J. Watt was having so much success. They were able to really get after Brett Rippon. And so the way that the Broncos countered that was, okay, let's get on the outside here. Let's make this defensive line for the Cardinals pay the price for not setting the edge. Let's get our offensive linemen aggressive. It's easier to pass block than to run block than pass block. So I think that the Broncos were sort of forced into that against the Cardinals, but when they do run the football, that's when they have a lot of success.
Yeah.
So it was great to see Latavius Murray have that kind of a game. He's 32 years old, his 10th season in the NFL. A lot of questions about him when he first got here, like, does he even have anything left in the tank? And for him to go out there and play like that, now people are talking about, hey, should they bring this guy back next year? So it was awesome to see that. Him and Marlon Mack seem to be a good 1-2 punch. And I do think that for this offense to have success, they have to be able to run the ball. And that doesn't matter if Brett Rippon is back there or Russell Wilson.
Right.
This team needs to be able to run the ball in order to have success on offense.
For sure. And I know Russell today, when he spoke to the media, he had some high praise for Latavius Murray, said his mentality is some of the best that he's ever seen. And like you mentioned, I don't think a lot of people thought when Latavius Murray got here, he was going to come in and make an immediate impact. But we've seen it on the field and even in the locker room too. He's been, just super helpful for some of the younger guys and just has a presence about him that people listen to, I feel like.
And there's so many young guys on this Broncos team and so many guys who are like playing in the NFL because of all the injuries.
Yeah.
So
100%.
To have a guy like Latavius Murray who's been here for a long time, in the NFL at this level, sort of has that calming presence, never gets up too high, doesn't get down too low, doesn't ride that wave after a loss where he's like really upset in the locker room. He's just sort of that pro's pro. It makes sense that a guy like Russell Wilson connects with him just because they're the veterans on this team. And so I do think that it's valuable having a guy like that. Even you interviewed him on the field after the game, Sid, and he was just chill.
He's great.
That's just sort of who he is. And it's nice to have that kind of a presence in this locker room.
For sure. Well, Phil, we saw Courtland Sutton. He was back at practice today. I know Coach Hackett has said a few times this week that they're really hopeful to have him back this weekend versus the Rams. So what do you think it would mean for this offense just to get Courtland Sutton back? It's been a few games since he's been out there.
Well, I'm sort of interested to see what they do with Courtland Sutton because, of course, when he went out, Jerry Jeudy moved over and played at Courtland Sutton's spot.
Right.
So if Sutton is able to go, what does that mean for Jerry Jeudy? How are they going to use him in this game against the Rams? I don't know. I would leave Jerry where he is.
He's been having a lot of success.
A lot of success. It seems like his skill set really translates to that spot there. And you know what? Maybe it would be good for Courtland, too, to try somewhere else and just sort of see if he can have some success there, too. Sutton is not the kind of guy who creates a lot of separation out there. He's just not that kind of a player. And I think that he's more of, hey, I'm going to try and win a 50-50 ball. Right. I'm going to use my size to make these plays. That's sort of where he has his skill set. So maybe let's see what he can do at a different position, especially him coming off this hamstring. Like even in practice, it didn't look like he was like really sharp. At least the portion that the media is able to see. He didn't look like he was running like really like, it didn't look like the beginning of the season maybe, or certainly not pre-ACL. Those ACLs, it's so hard to come back and return to your former way of playing. And I don't know if we've ever really seen that from Courtland Sutton. But he was never really that guy who was like out there running these crazy routes. He was the guy who uses his size, and his size is a huge advantage for him. So maybe he's able to use that in other ways. And then maybe the opposing defense will have to focus a little bit more on a guy like Courtland, and maybe that'll free up some stuff for Jerry. But I do hope that Jerry still gets about 10 targets.
I hope so
he
too.
Needs the ball in his hands. And so hopefully he can still get those targets. And then just having Courtland out there, that's just more of a threat than a Brandon Johnson at this point, So let's see how they can all work together. And kind of like with Russ back out there wanting to see what this thing looks like in the future, that goes for all positions. What is it going to look like at wide receiver when these two guys are out there? Or certainly on the defensive side, that's like a big reason why Randy Gregory came back. What is this going to look like? I think that's true with Courtland Sutton back out there and Jerry Jeudy. What are we dealing with here for next year?
For sure. Yeah. Well, Phil, got to ask one about the defense here. They've had just a pretty dominant. Well, they've had a dominant season.
They've had a dominant season.
But a dominant past couple weeks in terms of, takeaways, turnovers. I think 8 interceptions in the past 3 weeks.
It's been a lot. It's been a lot of Justin Simmons, too.
Justin Simmons,
and Pat Surtain. Those guys have gotten the ball.
Yeah, it's been nice to see. How do you hope just that unit as a whole continues that over the final 3 weeks?
I hope that it continues. Nice to see Justin get the ball in his hands. We're talking about the postgame show. Todd Davis kind of said something that was interesting. He said, it's not like Justin is out there like making these crazy interceptions. Like the ball just seems to come to him.
It does.
And that speaks to Justin's game prep and like film study. He's just always in the right spot, and Justin had a little bit of a difficult game against Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs. And for him to bounce back like he had like he did last week. I thought that was really impressive. And he tends to have those big games where he gets a couple, you know. And
Yeah,
I
that's
think
true.
that with this Rams offense, it's been a long season for them. And maybe there's an opportunity to get a couple more here, especially if the offense could get a little bit of a lead. You know, if they can play with a lead, force the Rams to take some chances that maybe they wouldn't if they were playing with a lead, then you can get some of those turnovers. And they say they come in bunches. See if it can continue this week.
Right. I hope we see Josie Jewell maybe get a couple more
Yeah.
interceptions. Those were some
He had
nice
a couple.
ones.
Yeah, that's true.
Baltimore?
And I like to see PS2 get those interceptions just because he's had such a great year. And I think that position, it's a little bit harder to look at the stat sheet and see it. You know, and so the fact that he only has 2 interceptions, you're like, oh, did he not have a great season? No, he's had a great season. It's just hard. It just doesn't always show up in a box score.
Yep, you're right. Well, regardless of the record, there's still a lot to look forward to over the next couple weeks.
Yeah, and
finish the
I mean,
season
look,
here.
it's on Christmas Day. I think that's sort of a special day to be able to play in pro sports, you know.
Right.
And, you know, I think this can be that Nickelodeon game. It should just be like a fun game to play in, you know. And so hopefully they take advantage of these last 3 weeks. Hopefully they can say, look, like we still have something to play for here. And I do think that if they can win a few of these games, like let's say they beat the Rams and then they win one of those last 2 against the Chargers or the Chiefs. That would be a pretty good end to the year, I think.
I agree.
You know, like especially if the offense can stay in the 20s.
Yeah.
Then you have at least a glimmer of hope heading into the offseason. And I really
100%.
think that that's a big deal.
I do too. Yep. Hopeful for that. We'll see what happens though.
Have fun out there, Sid.
Yeah, thank you,
Yeah,
Phil. We'll miss
Christmas
you for sure.
in Los Angeles.
I know. I'm actually very happy that we're going to be in Los Angeles just with the cold front that's coming through. Just
Oh, I know. Get
about
out of here a
everywhere.
little bit. Yeah. Maybe some palm trees will be decorated.
really nice.
You know, that could be nice. Yeah.
Beach on Christmas.
Yeah.
Sign me up.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, Phil, appreciate your time always. Thanks for joining the show today.
Thanks, Sid.
Well, that'll do it for today's episode of Broncos Now, Broncos Country. Thanks so much for tuning in. I hope you will all meet me right back here on the Broncos Podcast Network and YouTube tomorrow evening for another episode. I will see you all then.